Welcome to episode 47 of Engaging Franciscan Wisdom. My name is Sister Michelle Lallier, and I'm excited as we begin a series on culture and the Franciscan way. We are blessed to have 3 Latin American associates with us today. While our original conversation was in Spanish, each of us have recorded our parts to this interview in English as well. I trust you will both enjoy and learn from this adventure, which crosses 4 countries across the Americas via Zoom. Arlen, let's begin.
Welcome to a special edition of the Franciscan Wisdom Podcast. I am Arlen Castro, a Franciscan associate. I'm from Nicaragua and I'm a member of the Latin America team as a support to the Spanish speaking community. It is an honor for me to have Sister Michelle here, who will interview the Franciscan World Team for Latin America. Welcome, Veronica. Welcome, Camilo. Welcome, Sister Michelle. I leave the direction of this interview in your hands.
Welcome to all of you. Here we are from 4 different countries. It's a miracle, isn't it? It is nice and very interesting that we're here today for a conversation that, thanks to technology, unites us from our countries. So, do we continue? Arlen. Arlen Casco was born and lives in Managua, Nicaragua. I've known her since her childhood, right? When I lived in Nicaragua. It is a pleasure to have you here. Arlen has been dating for 7 years and is getting married soon. A celebration is coming, isn't it?
That's right.
Arlen studied social communication and is currently studying education sciences with a major in English. She has been a Franciscan associate since 2010 and has been part of the work team for Latin America for a year, almost exactly a year, and she collaborates so that our podcasts in English can be heard in Spanish. Also, her experience in the work team with Latin America has allowed her to have a close relationship with the community of sisters and associates. Thanks, Arlen. So I want to ask you if you can tell me a little bit about your faith journey, including how you met the Franciscans and what attracted you to be a Franciscan associate.
As you mentioned, Sister Michelle, I've been in the community for quite some time now. I was born and raised in a Catholic home, and even though my mom and dad separated when I was very young, I remember that there was always that presence of both in my life, both in my education and in my spiritual formation. And something happened that I call that incidents. There were a series of events that occur and that allow me to be here in the community today. A group of sisters, including you, Sister Michelle, came to Nicaragua to carry out a mission in our country, and there was a coincidence that they came to live in the same neighborhood where my parents live. And there we meet each other, and also coincidentally, my dad, along with another uncles, built the house where the sister lived for many years while they carry out their mission here in Nicaragua. And it is the same house where I'm living today. So all of that for me is like that incident and a world of God. Being able to have known you since I was a child. I remember those happy moments that I spent in this house. I used to come to play, and I also remember that they formed a prayer group where many women participated, including my mother. Being a little girl, I said I wanted to be with her in the prayer group so I could come with her and listen to the formation and teaching that the sister gave these women regarding Franciscan spirituality, listening to all that marked my life a lot. Those words made a deep impression on my heart. That moment of my childhood is like a starting point so that I am currently a Franciscan associate because as a young adult, I decided and said I want to be a Franciscan associate, and it is what has allowed me to have many experiences in the Franciscan culture and spirituality and continue to grow not only personally but also professionally and spiritually.
Wow, that's a lot, right? And has lasted for many years.
Yes, it is.
Oh, thank you, Arlen. And Camino. Camino Barrera is with us. Camino, can you tell me something about your walk of faith, how you came to know the Franciscan charism and also become a Franciscan associate?
Well, Michelle, how nice to be here with you, sharing. Yes, I recognize myself as a seeker. Spiritual restlessness has accompanied me. As Antonio Machado says in his poem, Walker, there is no path, the path is made by walking. I was at Diocesan Seminarium for 4 years, and there I had the opportunity to meet an extraordinary woman who, with a free spirit, invited me to share spiritual experiences such as peace circles. She's Nuri Castillo, also a Colombian associate. I remember that one day she sent me an email where she shared one of her many crazy things. It was the associate newsletter. Simplicity began to call my attention, but also the depth of what appeared there. I asked her to teach me a little more, as when the disciples asked the Lord, "Where do you live?" And he answers, "Come and see it." So I began to talk, always via email, with Veronica and with Carmen. One day, Vero and Javier, who is also an associate in Ecuador, were going on a trip. I don't remember where.
Nicaragua, Managua.
That's it. They were going to Managua, and then they made a stopover here in Bogota. Nuri told me. We met and went to the airport. The four of us had lunch. We talked and we introduced each other. What caught my attention was the simplicity, the depth, and the joy. It was like if we have known each other all our lives. Then with Michelle, we began to talk through Facebook. I think I received the invitation from you and we began to talk. Finally, the opportunity arose in October 2016 to travel to Minnesota for about 4 or 5 days to see the convent, to meet the sisters who were my virtual friends. I came to know Michelle and Carmen personally and meet other people who live and celebrate their faith without diversity being problematic. And that for me was deeply liberating. I was deeply excited. So much so that afterwards I told Vero and others, I found my place. I found my home. And that has been part of this journey.
Imagine that, finding it in Latin America and then in North America. The house, the home is big, isn't it?
That's right.
Thank you, Camilo. I and Veronica, we also have many years of experience. Can you tell us something about your journey and how you met the Franciscan sisters and the way that led you to become a Franciscan associate?
The story is long. I am the oldest of four siblings, and when I was 12 years old, my mother brought me to a neighborhood meeting. I went with other friends my age and with their parents. I met Sister Joan Garrett, one of the Franciscan Sisters of Little Falls, who was on mission in my neighborhood on my block. What struck me most was the story of the young Francis of Assisi, hearing a voice asking him to rebuild a church that was falling in the rain. John began a song, and we all ended up hugging each other, recognizing that we were the church. We were the church that had to respond and rebuild. Years passed, and after finishing my first university career, I went with Sister John for a year as a missionary. We took buses and toured some Latin American countries. The nice thing is that I got to know in depth the simplest and most hidden people in neighborhoods of our third world. And when we hugged, I remember what I learned as a child about the reconstruction of the church from the foundations as a reality that could happen. Love changes. Spiritual wealth in dignified poverty were very latent schools in me. I finished that time as a missionary, and Sister Joan asked me, "Do you want to be a Franciscan associate?" I have continued with her and her community ever since. I decided to give that yes, and that led me to meet little by little more people called to live the Franciscan charism in Ecuador and in other countries. Well, the years went by. I lived with the Franciscan Sisters of Little Falls for a few months in their city, learning about the ministry of the associates relationship. Back in my country, I married my best friend. Two daughters were born, and a new invitation arrived. Since 2008, I have dedicated my time and offered my gifts to maintain a connection between South and Central America with the rest of the Franciscan Sisters of Little Falls community. It has been quite a journey and a beautiful adventure.
Mm, imagine the wealth of life experience among the three of you. You three form a team that crosses the borders of countries, cultures, gender, experiences. Wow. It is a great blessing to be here, sharing the wisdom that you bring, born out of your experience and your daily lives. So, continuing the conversation, as a team for the Latin American Associates, I can imagine that some of your work is the same in each country, and that each country also has unique resources or needs. What is the work carried out with the community? I'd like to hear from each of the three of you.
I consider that our main function is always to be aware of the community and of each associated that belong to the community. In Nicaragua, we are two groups. One is in Managua and another is in San Diego. Although there is a long distance between these two locations, we try to always be aware of the realities of each associate, their spiritual and material needs. In San Diego, there is not as much access to telephone connection and internet. Sometimes it is very difficult to establish a phone call because there is no good signal. So the Franciscan sisters have allocated resources to support the situation. A computer was bought, and the San Diego associates have it in a house where there is more access to the connection. Then the other associates arrive at that house, and from there they connect to have the meeting and participate in the different activities through Zoom or online. That's how San Diego is present, and we contribute in creating those spaces for communication and formation in the Franciscan tourism and spirituality. I think that is the richness of all functions. We hope to soon meet in person as we are already overcoming the pandemic.
Thank you for your work in supporting the development of rural and urban community. Thank you.
For me, It's interesting to be part of this team, knowing that, unlike Arlen and Vero, at this moment from Colombia, I am the only one in the association relationship. It has been the opportunity to meet and learn about faith and culture in the three Americas, North America, Central America, and South America. And that is still beautiful. We have to think about the language, about the appropriate words according to each country in order to meet and share. I had the opportunity to be in a meeting in Guayaquil, in Ecuador, and it was beautiful. I would also like to be with my Nicas brothers and sisters and hug each other and enjoy the nacatamales together. It has been very beautiful opportunity to me to learn from the wealth of Vero and Arlen, my two ñañitas. That's how they say little sisters in Ecuador.
Very well. Thank you. And the naka tamales are so delicious, right? No?
Sí, yes, I think you, Sister Michelle, had the opportunity to savor them when you were here in Nicaragua, and you learned something about our culture and the happy memory of how we Nicaraguans are, our hospitality, how we are as neighbors, as friends.
That's right.
I also had the pleasant opportunity to eat natacamales and spend some time getting to know the people of Nicaragua in Managua and in San Diego. That was a unique gift. May God let us visit each other again and continue with this relationship. Now that I hear Camilo saying ñañitas, well, ñaña means sister in Quechua. It is one of the many learnings that we have achieved. Ecuador has the oldest associates in Latin America. This includes myself.
Mhm.
In the early 1990s, sisters Joan and Berta Gerrits and Ramona Johnson were serving in our country. After several years, they returned to Minnesota. We remain as a community of Franciscan associates in the Highland region and on the coast region of Ecuador. And we continue with monthly meetings, meeting once a year for a big gathering, nurturing ourselves with communication with North America for years through newsletters like The Associate. I was thinking that this relationship has nurtured the different ministries that some associates continue to develop. It is that the Franciscan charism is expressed through people who serve in the Ecuadorian Amazon, in ecclesial parishes in different places, in ministries of the world and the Eucharist, etc. And day by day, I see that Franciscan spirituality also has an impact in our families, to which we all belong. In this way, I have seen how the community continues to grow.
Oh, the land of Ecuador is also very beautiful, and your family embodies so many characteristics of Franciscan and gospel values. Thank you for your hospitality when sisters or associates have come to your home from other countries. Well, you three make quite a team. Can you tell us something about how you actually work together? And how does this way of working give witness to Franciscan values?
I can continue. I remember that October 2021, a year ago, was when we officially start putting our ideas together, Arlen, Camilo, Veronica, to see how to serve the Spanish speaking associates. A dynamic of deep reflection was generated among the three of us. At the same time, I remember that we were attending a training program for some months to refresh and learn more about the Franciscan spirituality. Without a doubt, it was a great endorsement and support from the Franciscan community for those of us in Latin America. And the interesting thing is that our team is made up of three people from the three different countries, separated by many kilometers, including Ireland, who is in another time zone. We agreed on when it was better for us to meet. Since then, we have met weekly by video conference to discern, including planning the monthly Zoom Franciscan Life Circle in Spanish. In addition, we have a group chat in another technological application for the three of us, which facilitates permanent dialogue but in an asynchronous way. In other words, we don't have to be responding to each other at the moment, but when we have time, we respond. Sure, there's email and some pretty handy file organization, but this instant messaging mechanism keep us connected on a daily basis. I continue to learn a lot from this pair of young individuals who are now part of the team. I can feel that cordiality, respect, understanding, punctuality, a lot of empathy in every communication with Arlen and with Camilo. The relationship goes beyond a job, a trade, or work obligation. I find myself thinking that in addition to promoting Franciscan values in Zoom techniques, we put them into practice frequently. For example, Camilo usually comes to our meetings with a work agenda on some topic, and with great humility, he allows us to revise his plan and then continue. And his humility allows us to work together with a specific objective. I also think that we have emphasized thinking about how our circle is dedicated to putting ourselves in other people's shoes. We ask ourselves, do all the associates know how to read? Do they have such materials? We think about who will be in that meeting, when and what time suits better for them, and so thinking of that specific group we have connected. I feel that the value of minority has been one of the bases that move our community meeting. Then we are always evaluating as a team what is it that God did and what can we improve. And personally, I feel that we live an experience of community life where we get to know each other and discern the next call for service. Isn't that right, Camilo?
Yes, along with what you say, Vero, I believe that I have learned to work more as a team by being part of this team. For example, something as simple as understanding that situations can arise when planning a meeting, when we can or cannot connect, and that we can overcome it together. We have learned that preparing for the unforeseen is wonderful. For example, if we can't meet together, we can meet asynchronously through chat, and that's not obstruct the work, and we have achieved a very, very rich experience. I think that in addition to the minority that Vero mentioned, I have learned in practice to live the simplicity that characterizes Franciscan spirituality and its great power, to think of simple exercises that can include many and foster beautiful and powerful reflections. And I can live out the joy. There is no meeting without smiles and hugs, even if they are virtual. I have also learned the power of the smile to unite and call forth, so that when planning together with Arlen and Vero, we always think it's important to first think about the meetings, something funny that we can all talk about. This has helped us to start the circle month by month.
The three of you were part of a 6-month intensive course called Engaging Franciscan Spirituality. En español, ¿cómo le dirán? In Spanish, how would you say it?
Involucrándonos con la sabiduría franciscana.
Así. Okay. Ah, okay. Vero, you have been hungry and thirsty for this for several years, asking to be a part of it. And now, with technology, together with the pandemic, we saw possibilities of crossing distance and cultural barriers to learn together from North, Central, and South America. And you are translating in a way that Camilo said in a simple way, the richness of the tradition, not only of piety, rich piety, but also the intellectual and practical tradition of how to live these values of the gospel in the spirit of Saints Francis and Clare. The three of you are pioneers in this. You're doing important work to make accessible the richness of Franciscan spirituality in a life of faith. So I want to thank you on behalf of the broader community for the important work you're doing. Thanks. I also have another question. Looking to the future and the vision, because you are visionaries, what are you hearing now is God's call to the community? And also, what can Franciscan values and wisdom bring to our daily lives?
I think that Franciscanism is a way of life. For me, it is something that when it takes root in your heart, it is already very difficult to turn back or get out of the way because it is so valuable. It has so much wealth. I think that in the community, we see each other as a family. I see another associate as a brother, as a sister, as a mother, as an uncle, because that trust is being formed. It is being strengthened day by day. With regard to the community, I believe that when Franciscan values strengthen the community, then the community expands as well. St. Francis said, we try to lead by example with what we do for others and the way in which we live. So I think that this calls other people who are around us because we have this lifestyle and they are always curious, asking who the associates are and what do they do, what is the path to become an associate. So I think that this is where the Franciscan values are rooted.
Mm, thank you. There's a lot to savor in your sharing. Thank you.
Yes, that's right. Now that Arlene was sharing about the testimony as the example that others can see, I think that there are two things that resonate with me when considering our call. The first one is in the short term and has to do with embodying and or concretizing the Franciscan values in our daily lives. Always in our meetings, in the Franciscan Life Circle, circles of peace, and also in our team meetings, we ask ourselves, and it always moves us. Today, concretely, how does conversion minority become a reality? How do poverty, contemplation, and joy become a reality where I am? I think this is a question that we must constantly ask ourselves. I believe that Franciscan spirituality challenges us to always ask ourselves that question as a community too, and with all the people among whom we share. The second call that I see also has to do with our being together. It is to continue connecting beyond the borders that our countries draw. The borders drawn by languages and even our religions. It is incredible the diversity among us and the enormous efforts the sisters and associates are making to connect, learning to use Zoom and various other technological means. For example, learning what it means to hold a hybrid meeting when some people are in person and others are connected virtually, and learning how to communicate when some speak Spanish and others speak English. experimenting with how to build that bridges. That had made us connect and share courageously. We have already experienced it, for instance, in community days with the sisters. I think these are the two calls that seem to me to be very, very present in this experience.
Exactly as Camilo expresses, it reflects that our Franciscan community is no longer located just in Minnesota. Its global character is a feature of its own. We are very different people from different generations who live in different contexts. But the interesting thing is that we respond to a powerful call to live against the current of the societies we inhabit and bring hope there where there is despair. We live in simplicity, dispossession, forgiveness, unity, in the midst of those very strong voices that tell us to consume more where there is war, division. I think that Franciscan spirituality as a lifestyle becomes a reality with the simple examples that we learn from our brothers and sisters. We learn to live with detachment, with solidarity in the midst of God's creation that calls us to be one. I know that the pandemic has challenged us not to leave the community relationship at the required physical distance. But it was nice because technology emerged as an answer that channel. Not all of us had the internet, but a large percentage of associates from the three Americas did, as well as the sisters. We do have the internet, and at least to this group, they were arriving one and another invitations to different video conferences, for example. I began to get to know several Franciscan sisters much more closely that I had only been able to visit in previous years for a few minutes. Surprisingly, the proximity made it easier for us and we broke the language barrier thanks to the simultaneous translation. It seems that we are beginning to resume presence, to see each other face to face again, to recognize the richness of the past, the encounter and the embrace. But I sense that the spaces that were opened will not be neglected. I'm referring to the video conferences. And what better way to enhance the videos, audios, emails, to continue getting to know each other, fellowshipping and encouraging each other in the service, ministries, and trade that each member of the community develops and lives. That's where I think we are going.
Hmm. And listening, I'm listening to the voices of Saints Francis and Clare when they say that we are mirrors and examples for each other. You as a team are showing by your actions and your words an example of how we can be a community, a society, a world more united, more of communion. So thank you for your testimony and the ways you continue to learn and share what you learn. It's a process. And I think this podcast is a way to share it. I have a lot of hope and joy as well since you're embracing this new initiative. And I believe that God is going to bless it and bless you in this process. So I have one last question. Looking forward, what dreams do you have for our Franciscan community? I'm all ears.
Well, apart from the fact that we want our community to continue to grow stronger, because it is really very important to be constantly renewing our commitments. As a team, we also have dreams and projects with specific activities that we want, God willing, to be carried out in the short term. And one of them is that we want to start with interviews with members of our Franciscan community in Latin America and other people who share the Franciscan charism. We want it to be in video and audio format. We are planning as a team where we also hope that our community in the United States knows a little more about our realities, for which it will have its version in English, that is, half the dubbing in English. Also, among other projects as a global community, we want to strengthen that relationship and participation of young people within our community. Then we will have future meetings where we focus a little more on participation of young people.
Thank you. And I don't know if there is any other reflection on your part before finishing.
Yes, add gratitude. The vision for us to get to this point was from several people, not only from us. I felt the support, the initiative, the invitation from several sisters. For example, Carmen Barsotti. She has always been aware of Latin America because she lived here and had the initiative to motivate us as Franciscan associates not to give up. And in a way, she saw us working together. I think that in her and in some other people, God planted the desire that our names work together at some point, but also the opening of two young university students, professionals who can find ways in their day to day, Camilo and Arlen, to be in this service. So I'm very grateful for them, for the Franciscan community, and the possibilities that are present today for the future. Gracias.
I believe that our world often lacks joy. We lack that ability to smile day by day and the ability to feel loved and recognize ourselves loved in our daily life. I think that, particularly from what I have experienced in this relationship and the relationships that have been born, it is this. It has been the ability to smile and that ability to live with joy, but also that ability of feeling myself deeply loved. And how beautiful that these experiences that we are weaving could be shared and communicated to other people in other contexts, and that they could feel that goodness and that power of the good news of love and of the joy that St. Francis has taught us. It is the love of that God who loves us so much, and that so much he wants the good for all. I believe that we are weaving paths for other people beyond whether they want to be linked as associated or not. Can share it. That is the beauty sharing this charisma.
I really feel very grateful because I feel that the community has told me so much. And I thank God also for having this opportunity to have grown among the sisters from my English years, then with the associate, and now to be with Vero and Camilo in this new experience and working with them. I see them as my older brother and sister who also guide me and share visions to better carry out my work. They are a guide for me. We are a team where there is trust and love. It is also a Franciscan gift to be working with them and to continue dreaming to the community and to continue experiencing the love that Camilo mentions.
Yes, it has been a tasty conversation, sabrosa, in sharing, in the potential that nourishes us for everyone who's listening to think, what about my dreams? And what community or communities am I in? How can I go forward listening to the voice of God and seeking community and building the kingdom of God? Isn't it? So, Arlen and Camilo and Veronica, thank you so very much for your sharing today and for all that you do. It has been a blessing to be able to share this time with you. I am happy and truly enjoying this joy of communion. I look forward as well to hearing how relationships will continue to grow among Latin American associates, as well as between sisters and associates from North, Central, and South America in communion. May God bless you in your work and in your dreams. Thank you.
Gracias.
Gracias.
Yes.
Thanks to you, listeners, for tuning in to the podcast today. I'm looking forward to episode 48, when I will interview Sister Meg Earsley, a Franciscan sister of perpetual adoration, who recently returned after serving 10 months in Bolivia through the Franciscan mission service. Meg is super excited to share stories and learnings from her time working and living with incredible people. Until then, may you be blessed with peace and all good.